Hi, you made it to my channel, Niche Gaming. Today I'm going to review the Pacific P12. As with all of my truck reviews so far, they're based on New Game Plus settings and used in the Michigan region. You can see my New Game Plus settings in that initial video where I explain what rules I selected to give myself a good balance of challenge and fun for my playthrough. I only review trucks that I have had an ample chance to test, use, and feel I understand everything about. I may have a truck in my fleet at the end of my Michigan playthrough that I don't review yet because I just haven't used it enough. As for the Pacific P12, I used it extensively, so I'm well versed with its capabilities in SnowRunner. In addition to what I did in my playthrough, I have another test file, and whatever I didn't do in my regular playthrough, I tested it and I was quite impressed with it. So I feel I know enough about it. I will answer the question in the thumbnail in the conclusion verdict section of the video. You may in fact figure out my opinion of the P12 well before then, but stick around to get my complete analysis of this truck and the justification for my verdict. The Pacific Truck and Trailer Company of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada was in operation from the 70s to the early 80s. Pacific was known for making dependable trucks for mining, oil fields, construction sites, logging, and other specialty transport. The trucks have such a following that to this day, companies pay for custom versions to be rebuilt. The Pacific P12 was one of a series of specialized industrial trucks launched by the company, and it was one of the most popular trucks Pacific had to offer. I think even more popular than the P16. While SnowRunner puts this truck in its heavy category, I made a special category of industrial heavy to distinguish these types of trucks from other heavy or heavy-duty trucks. SnowRunner's categorizations are not always sensible, so I looked at what the truck can do in real life and what the truck can do in the game and try to put it in the best category that I think it belongs to. In SnowRunner, the P12 is bought from the truck store for a price of 126,600 game currency, and it comes equipped with all-terrain tires, always-on diff lock, and already switchable all-wheel drive. So you don't have to upgrade to switchable all-wheel drive. Nothing of this is found. There is no suspension upgrade, but you can and should upgrade the engine to its max and the gearbox to advanced special. And of course, since this is a mudrunning game, you will have to upgrade the all-terrain tires as well. And we'll talk about to which type. Unlike the P16, the Pacific P12 has plenty of external add-ons, especially when considering that it's a specialized industrial heavy truck. Although not as much as the typical heavy-duty trucks, but it's still versatile and equipped with a powerful engine. Now the tires should have been bigger and the mud tires should have been better. Still, this truck has most of the advantage of the P16 and more, leaving only a few use cases where the P16 would be better. It can do logging, but you don't have to limit it to just that because of the extra options it has when compared to the P16. I would reserve it for your heaviest tasks. I used it for double loads of medium logs, but it can be used for long logs, high saddle trailer transport, the LK-2NY crane, which is one of the highest cranes, and even 3-piece or even 5-piece loads by its unique multi-purpose cargo module, which actually includes a crane, 1-piece cargo slot, 250 liters of fuel, 450 repair parts, and 4 spare tires. If you look at this truck as the perfect Pacific truck, with only improvements upon the P16, you will be disappointed. But if you look at it from a pragmatic point of view, it's an excellent addition to your fleet, well worth the money you'll have to pay for its purchase and then upgrades. Now let's talk about the dimensions and design of this truck. Its length 11 meters, width 3.2 meters, weight 44,092 pounds, around about 22 tons. Body balance excellent to perfect. This truck has almost very similar to the P16, almost has the perfect frame for body balance, being one of the most stable trucks in the game, maybe even more so than the P16. The medium logs are some of the most unstabilizing cargoes. The tipsy, bouncy nature of those logs, it's one of those cargoes that makes even the most stable of trucks prone to tipping over. Yet the P12 constantly resists that and maintains its stability. Throughout the game, so many times I thought, that's it, this truck is about to tip over because of the medium logs. But it handles it quite well. It resists tipping over. It's so well balanced. The frame, everything. Its body balance, it's excellent to perfect. It's one of the best body balance and frames in the entire game. Probably also because of its weight. All of those factors to play a part, and it's just the physics of it, it's perfect. It's one of the most stable trucks you could possibly have in SnowRunner. It's heavy, as can be expected from trucks of its class, but the game's version doesn't do it justice and makes it just as heavy as the P16. If you look at the map runner stats, it's actually 25,000 mass, and if you look at the P16, same 25,000 mass. So it doesn't do it justice. Whereas in real life, obviously, it was about 11,000 pounds lighter. That affects power to weight ratio, but in real life, the power to weight ratio of P12 would be better, even if it had the same engine, because it weighs less. The drivetrain features always-on differential lock, just like the P16, and switchable all-wheel drive at the time of purchase. Again, you don't have to upgrade to that, and it's not one of those things that are found anyway. It's a bought truck. So at the time of purchase, you get the switchable all-wheel drive. You do have to switch it on, but the differential lock is always on, just like the P16. So that's a huge advantage. Has the same always-on diff lock like the P16, which is quite uncommon, huge advantage for these big heavy trucks. And the all-wheel drive being switchable. It's a huge advantage that it has over the P16. This truck has a unique gearbox named Advanced Special that gives you all the advantages of the off-road gearbox, but with a 5th gear. That's the exact same as the P16. It's not a different gearbox. They both use the same Advanced Special, upgradable to Advanced Special gearbox. It comes with Special or whatever, and it only gives you like one low gear, but when you get Advanced Special, both of them work the same way. It gives you a low plus, low minus, and high gear, and gives you a 5th gear as well. It's just much better than the Special, and you can and should upgrade to the Advanced Special gearbox as soon as you can afford it. I do it right away. As soon as I buy the truck, I obviously just upgrade it, because this one's bought, as opposed to the P16 where it's found and then you bring it back to the garage after you're done in Drummond Island. Its off-road tires are not as good as the P16's, but pretty much on par with the off-road tires available to the heavy-duty classes. So that's one huge advantage the P16 has. P16 has some of the best. It's called OHD1 as well, just like these tires are called OHD1. It's off-road tires, but the OHD1 for the P12 or others that maybe use the OHD1 are not the same as the P16's OHD1. P16 has its special OHD1 tires, and they're some of the best tires in the entire game. If the P16 had all-wheel drive, it would probably be one of the best trucks available in the game. Minus the engine, where there are other trucks that would have more powerful engine, but it would just be one of the best trucks. And so these off-road tires, while this truck will have all-wheel drive, it doesn't have tires as good as the P16's. This gets the 57-inch off-road OHD1 that gives the same ratings as your UOD2 for your typical heavy-duty classes, the best off-road tires they have available for mud. And that's 0.8 in asphalt, 3.0 in dirt off-road, and 1.9 in the mud. And those are map runner stats, of course. The chained OHD2 all chains, same as always, 1.2, 3.0, 1.3. Same ratings you'll find for all chains tires. But the MHS1, DMHS1, 2, or 3 mud tires available 0.5, 2.0, 2.0. So 0.5 in the asphalt, even worse than the OHD1 in the asphalt, worse than the OHD1 in dirt off-road, so 2.0 versus 3.0, and slightly better in mud, so 2.0 versus 1.9. The tires are below average relative to the size of the truck. If you look at the truck, when you're upgrading tires and everything, you look at the truck should really have bigger tires than this for the size of the truck, but it is what it is. It does hurt its potential a little bit. It's just the physics of it. When actually you're going uphill and a lot of other stuff, the truck could perform a little better. had it the option to just have slightly bigger tires. The suspension is stock only, just like the P16. It's not that when you look at the suspension, it looks like, oh, well, the suspension could have been upgraded. In fact, with these types of trucks, it almost seems like if the suspension was upgraded, it would be detrimental for the truck. So it probably would hurt the stability of the truck. And the stock clearance seems to be enough ground clearance for the tires and for the truck. But still, probably should have been given a better option than just 57 inch, or maybe a little larger than that. But it is what it is. No suspension upgrade and nothing higher than 57 inch. You do get a selection of tires, but none of them compare to what the P16 got. Its one set of tires is better than all of these different selections. So for my playthrough and testing, because the mud tires of the MHS1, for example, are only marginally better than the off-road tires, I would simply go with the OHD1. OHD1 because they're much better in the asphalt, much better in the regular dirt off-road, non-wet, dry off-road versus mud. They're only slightly under 1.9 versus 2.0. So just go with the OHD1. With some of these initial mud tires, I got excited. Oh, you got mud tires, wow. But the mud tires are only marginally better than the OHD1 or off-road tires that particular truck has the option to get. So you end up regretting getting the mud tires. All of my trucks that I got these mud tires, this one and let's say the Western Twin Steer 6900, I wouldn't go with the mud tires. I would go with off-road tires for both of these trucks. So 57-inch off-road OHD1, that's what you want to go with this truck. As you can see from my playthrough, I actually use the mud tires, but again, once you select them, you go with it. Because I didn't know about the map runner stats, I later learned, okay, this was not actually the best tire to go with. Should have gone with the off-road tires. The P12 gives you surprisingly sharp turns for its large size. Now don't expect miracles, but one of the best turning radius for trucks of this heavy size. Its steering, I rate it as medium to large turning radius. Now the P16 was terrible. P16 was very large, one of the largest turning radius of any truck of the game. This truck seems to do a little better. Seems to be able to turn fairly sharp turns for its size, relative to its size. Again, don't expect it to turn like scouting or off-roading trucks, but not bad. And of course, stability control, it doesn't lose control. It doesn't go left and right, doesn't have any kind of terrain feedback that makes you feel like you're losing control. Very easy to control this truck. Steering control, excellent. Fuel consumption is what you'd expect for this truck. It's high. It tops out at a level 22.1 liters per minute. That's with the advanced special gearbox, all-wheel drive on, diff lock always on, of course, under heavy load, on off-road terrain, perhaps going uphill. The worst load you can possibly give it, or worst position you can probably put it in, and it'll do about 22.1 at highest point. That's a little more than the P16. Perhaps the P16 would have more if it had the double medium log load. This load, because of the weight distribution. See, when I use the P16 or P12 rather with long logs, just like I did with the P16, just to test difference. Is it because of the logs? And yes, it is. With the long logs, this never stopped up going uphill. But with the medium logs, it did. Now I can't really test the medium logs with the P16 because the P16 doesn't even have that option. At certain points, no matter what you do, what you select, you're going to get stopped up. You'll need to winch. Now you don't get stopped up in the sense that you can't progress. There is enough to winch, but you do have to winch. You can't just depend on the truck and its capability to pull you through. The off-road tires do perform better, but they're not enough and they don't resolve this issue. You're going to have to winch through certain parts when you're going uphill. Sometimes during mud as well, but that has to do with the tires not being ideal and that sort of thing. When I use my off-road tires, I never had to winch through the mud, but I did have to winch going uphill with the double medium logs. That's the only time you have to winch with this truck. I can't even test it against the Caterpillar CT681, which has the same level of engine and would have access to the same level off-road tire. The fuel efficiency, it's at its worst with 22.1 liters, but you don't get that very often. There's obviously the highest level that I talk about, the level stable reading at 22.1 liters per minute. That's when you load it to the maximum, but even that's rare. I wouldn't call it a blip or something. It can stabilize at that reading, but it usually will be far less. That's your highest. It tops out at that 22.1 liter per minute. Stable reading. Spikes can go above even higher than that, but it stabilizes at 22.1, which is a lot, which is a lot of consumption. But it does have the 350 liters fuel tank. And if you select the multi-purpose cargo module, it actually gives you an additional 250 liters of fuel when this add-on is selected. And that's quite rare for trucks of this size. Huge fuel tank, larger than the P16s. The P16 gives you 300 liters. This will give you 350 liters. If you're doing logging, of course, 350 liters is what you're going to get. But if you're using it to transport 6 pieces of cargo or 5 pieces, 1 for its multi-purpose cargo module and 4 from the trailer that it's attaching, it'll give you 250 for that add-on and 350 that it already includes in its fuel tank, totaling for 600 liters. Very rare, nice feature that they gave for this particular truck. Obviously, the P16 has nothing like that. The consumption is high as expected, but again, its fuel efficiency could have been better if they had made its game version weight represent its real life weight, which was obviously lesser than the P16s. But they did not, so it is what it is. The P12 features industrial heavy class power, just like the P16. Now, the real life engine, the highest customization that I found, and this was not back in the 70s, throughout the 70s, probably more close to the early 80s. But it was found, and it was from Pacific. It wasn't offered in the original brochures and everything, but it was offered, and it was known that this truck could be customized to this level. The real life engine, Cummins K19 inline 6-cylinder turbocharged, 700 horsepower, 2,013 pound-foot torque at 1200 RPM, with a max gross combination weight of over 300,000 pounds, 150 tons. Now that is a beast of an engine, and I believe that was only used for mining applications, transport related to the mining industry. I think also a submarine application of the marine related applications, transporting ships, some kind of saddle transport or trailer that had those large marine equipment. So really, really heavy stuff. That's when it required that level of an upgrade, but it had that customization available. Unfortunately, the game engine is hugely toned down and brought down to a much level, because this really would be in a big rig category, my category, but it is what it is. It's the same engine that the P16 gets. The game engine is Westline V12 M900. MapRunner gives its torque 210,000, and the mass, of course, as I mentioned, 25,000. The power to weight ratio is 42/5, which is like 8.4. Same exact as a P16. The SnowRunner's version of this truck's engine is not only toned down, but it is quite insulting to its true power. Such horsepower and torque are not found in many engines in the world in your typical commercially available trucks. And if the game's engine reflected its real-life highest available customization, this would easily be in my big rig category of trucks. Now, it should be noted that when Pacific initially launched these two trucks, the P16 and the P12, it seems that they had meant them to be of the same category, and they offered engine upgrades for both of the same type, probably throughout the 70s. It's hard to find this much research, but from what I found, this is what it seems to be. Like, for most of the 70s, they were pretty much advertised as the same, but little by little, the P12 seemed to be a little more customizable. So now, in the early 80s, nearing the last days of Pacific, before they were bought out by other companies, they did offer the higher customizations for the P12. From my reading, it seems the P16 didn't support such customizations unless it was completely rebuilt, which did happen later. Again, these trucks had such followings that people were like, okay, I want the P16, but I wanted to have this kind of engine. If it had to be rebuilt, I don't include that as it's a commercially available customization, if the Pacific didn't offer it. So this is why the P12 was known to have been able to move 150 tons. It's something that was advertised in readings and articles that, hey, the P12 can do that. Whereas no such amazing claims were made about the P16. On the P16, you only saw it with logging. That's the only thing that was ever used for. Logging. P12 could do logging, it did that, and it did other mining applications and all this transport, oil fields related transport, construction sites, mining, logging, and other specialty transport. It did everything. Everything this industrialized special category of trucks was meant to do. definitely more flexible, and the game reflects that. The game reflects that customization. The P12 is actually more customizable and used for more tasks than just logging. The P12 has a reasonable amount of external add-ons, significantly more than the P16, but not as much as the typical heavy-duty class. In my opinion, this is what puts the P12 above the P16 in SnowRunner. So we're talking about SnowRunner. In real life, I think the P12 was of a higher category, no doubt. It's well known the P12 was known to be better for all reasons, looking at all things. But in SnowRunner, there's advantage and disadvantage. We talked about some of those. We talked about tires. P16 has much better. P12 has all-wheel drive. So mostly, I would say still a little more in the P12's favor. And definitely when you look at what you can use a truck for in SnowRunner and in real life, how customizable it is, how many different types of tasks you can use it for, how flexible it is, how versatile it is. That matters. That adds great value to that truck. If you can only use one truck for one type of purpose and for nothing else, that limits its value, limits its application, limits its value to your company, limits its value to the market. The P12 was more customizable than the P16, and the game reflects that. The P16 was known as a pure logging truck, whereas the P12 seems to have been a little more versatile, owing in part to its greater engine customizability. In SnowRunner, you can use the P12 for a lot more than just logging and high saddle trailer transport, although these are two of its most important tasks. I used it for double loads of medium logs, but it can be used for long logs, high saddle trailer transport, the LK-2NY crane, and even 3-piece or 5-piece loads by its unique multi-purpose cargo module, which actually includes a crane, 1-piece cargo slot, 250 liters of fuel, 450 repair parts, and 4 spare tires. With a 2-piece or 4-piece cargo trailer attached, you can use this for the largest amount of cargo that the typical heavy-duty trucks struggle with. There is no low saddle trailer transport, which is a bit of a disappointment, but you will probably have many other trucks to fulfill those roles. Still, compared to the P16, you're looking at a lot more customizability and therefore a lot more usability and a lot more value to your fleet. The answer to the question, is this a disappointment? Well, again, that really depends on you. If you're like, oh, the P16 is exactly like the P16 and this one just has all-wheel drive, cool. No. I think that approach is wrong, and that's why a lot of people looked at the P12 like a huge disappointment. Like it wasn't everything that they were hoping it could be. But if you look at it from a more neutral perspective, a more pragmatic point of view, you're going to see the P12 as one step above the P16. The only thing you'll miss is the tires the P16 had. Far superior tires, one of the best tires in the game. You'll miss those tires, but apart from that, in every other way, I would say the P12 is a better truck. And is a step above the P16 and a great addition to your fleet if you learn how to use it effectively. Obviously, it's worth the money. I would happily pay this 126,600 game currency as soon as you can afford it, obviously. And then, of course, it's going to take a little more for upgrading. I would say probably about 160,000. Should probably have ready to go to upgrade it to its max right away, as soon as you buy it. But this is probably one of your later purchases. It's just because the P16 couldn't do the medium logging, so I did have to buy another truck to pick it, and I tried other things, and I looked at other options, looked at my heavy-duty class, looked at my fleet, which other trucks could actually handle this medium logging task, and I decided to choose the P12. Later, I'll probably eventually pick a truck that has even more power, at least in terms of the SnowRunner game version, that has more power than P12 for my medium logging, especially if I'm going to do double loads. But for now, P12 is and I may not limit it to just medium logging. I may use it for other things. But for my Michigan playthrough, I use it for medium logging, and it was invaluable. There was no other truck that could come close. I tried the white Western Star 4964. Again, the medium logging just makes it so tipsy. Even though that's a very stable truck, it tips right over. And obviously that truck is not nearly as powerful as this one. And so it just can't. Forget going uphill with double medium. It probably won't even be able to go up with one load of medium logs. High steep hills or tight turns and everything. It's going to be very tough. The P12 can handle it, but the white Western Star 4964, I don't think so. There's just no other truck. And the Fleet Star and GMC MH9500, forget about it. This kind of stuff is just too heavy for them and too unstable. For SnowRunner standards, you need stability. Everywhere you go, it's just highly unstable land. So these trucks have to be extra stable to handle that unstable land. The Fleet Star will flip right over. You can just forget about it. And not to mention, it doesn't have nearly the amount of power that you need. And same thing with the whole heavy duty class. You need something more powerful. Because a P16 doesn't even give you this option. It can only be used for long logs and high saddle trailer transport. If it could be used, I'd probably end up using the P16 for it, because just not to have to buy another truck. But because you can't use it, P16 for that, so P12 is probably an excellent option for your medium logs. Obviously, well worth the buy. Great addition to your fleet. You can later use it for other things, whereas a P16 is only limited. And I didn't buy the P16, I got it for free. That's part of the Michigan playthrough. P12 you have to buy, and it was worth it. Maybe I could have picked a better truck to buy, I don't know. Based on my New Game Plus rules, I don't have access to all the trucks in the store. Based on your level and what you discover, there's certain trucks that you have to discover before you can buy them. Whatever. It just depends on your level, depends on your region. So based on the trucks that I have access to and that I can afford, P12 was a great option for me and well worth the buy. Not a disappointment for me when I put myself outside that initial mindset that, you know, oh, this is just like the P16, but just has all-wheel drive. Oh, it's got to be the perfect truck. No, there's advantages and disadvantages. Probably in real life as well, but overall in real life and in the SnowRunner game, that part is reflected that the P12 is a superior truck to the P16. That's it for my review of the Pacific P12. You can check out more footage of the P12 completing, I believe, 8 at the island and other medium logs. I'm just continuing with all the medium log transports that I have to do for Michigan, so I complete that in the next video. You can check that video out. This is all I have for this video. Hope you liked it. Hope you liked my reviews. If you do, please give me a like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching.